All kinds of interesting things are happening on the political front, and we'll be reporting on them and also seeing if some of our regular commentators come in and add some of their thoughts about a number of these things that are taking place as well. So we definitely have a lot of things that are going on. And I see that Kim Calhoun has joined me, and we'll see who else joined us as well. But apparently, the Trump trial is going on, and there are jail threats over gag violations as testimony continues. And definitely, Stormy Daniels has testified about having sex with Trump in those hush money trials. And definitely, it looks like the judge has denied a motion for a mistrial that Trump was trying to get going as well. So he denied that motion, and we've still got folks in there that are trying to get him off of that particular term. And of course, Biden says anti-Semitism has no place in America in a somber speech that was connecting the Holocaust to Hamas attack on Israel. And TikTok is suing to block the U.S. law, which could ban that particular app. So it'll be interesting what folks have to say about this TikTok latest counter and everything. And I was earlier reading some news where I saw that there was the possibility that apparently Mr. Putin is reaching out to another one of the countries that shares similar political ideology and all along those lines. But I had heard recently that Mr. Putin was offering $2,000 and Russian citizenship for the Cubans to come and fight for the Russian army and all along those lines. So I guess he's reaching out to other countries to help him in this war against Ukraine. So that's something that I saw that he had done, I guess, in his recent being elected for the I forgot how many times, either 5 or 6 or something like that. But he was saying that he was going to have this whole notion and everything. And coming back to the Trump case, and we'll bring in Sasha, and also I see we've got Kim on as well. But the judge has warned the prosecutors about degrees of detail during Stormy Daniels' salacious testimony as jurors struggled to keep a straight face. So apparently there was a lot of things that were going on that were talked about the nature of what the whole experience was like for Stormy Daniels and all along those lines. And apparently some of the jurors were having a hard time keeping their face straight as she was testifying as to what was going on. And I know Sasha has been watching that trial and all along those lines. So maybe he can tell me what the whole reaction was, and also Kim as well. So I'll bring in both Kim and Sasha and hear some of their thoughts about this testimony and about some of these other things that I brought up in the very quick introduction and all along those lines. But it looks like a lot of folks are paying attention to this trial around the world and everything. And I guess it's now the time for Stormy Daniels to kind of soar and let folks know what she thought of Mr. Trump and everything. But Sasha, you've been watching the trial, and I've not been watching it in that much detail, but what was the reaction to the jurors from what you could tell and everything, and what did you think of her testimony? Since I didn't see it, I'll have to depend on somebody like maybe you or Kim that did watch the testimony.
Mark, you're asking me like I was all day at the courthouse and heard every word and reaction on those words. Of course, it's not the case. Unfortunately, we cannot watch the trial. We can see only commentaries. We can see some recordings sometimes, but not always. So, based on what I understand, Trump would do himself a great service if he would stop denying having sex with Stormy Daniels, even it was only 3 seconds. But then we wouldn't even care about this testimony of Stormy Daniels, how was it, and so on, and all the details, and which we already heard many times. I don't know why he keeps denying that, but okay, that's his strategy. Always deny, deny, deny. Now, there's no doubts in anybody's mind that, of course, there was sex, but even that is proving nothing. Okay, so there wasn't sex, or it wasn't sex. That's not why the trial is there. The trial is for falsification of business records, which coming out of attempts to conceal the sex with her from electors and so on. Basically, that's what's the point. So whether there was actually sex or not, I'm not trying even to put any doubts about that. Perhaps there was sex, but even if there was no sex, but he paid her money for whatever, and this was channeled through falsification of business records, that's enough to convict him. So, frankly, I don't understand why sex is such a big issue here. But for
But
what
there
it is,
was for
no,
3 seconds. She said it lasted, less than a minute. It was so gross that she kind of
3 seconds is less than a minute.
Yeah.
The way I understand it.
Yeah, but one of the things that's been
But
going
what
on.
does it matter, though? At the end of the day, I think it's just a bunch of bored judges and courtrooms that just want to hear a lot of drama and things that just really have nothing to do with the case itself. So what? So they had sex. The whole question, everything boils down to the fact that he misused appropriated funds. He misused them. He used him to gag her. He used him to pay her off. Now, gagging, to me, is a form of admitting guilt, right? Gagging somebody, paying them off, and saying, okay, you have to sign this contract saying you're not ever going to discuss. To me, that's just a form of guilt already. So you have a contract that he issued to her to say you're not going to say anything. But the whole thing isn't about that. This all smoke screens and a bunch of bored people who don't have sex and want to hear about it. So I think what they need to do is eliminate the drama, get rid of all of the BS stories, and boil down to the real issue. Did he misuse appropriated funds that were
Kim, that reminds me, remember the famous line by Bill Clinton, I never had sex with that woman. Remember that?
Yeah.
Apparently,
Republicans.
but he was tried.
Republicans don't have sex.
Yeah, he was convicted by House not because he had sex with that woman or he didn't have sex with that woman. It was because he lied under oath.
Right.
That's what decided the deal. Not whether nobody cared anymore.
All right, so I believe that Bill Clinton was being tricky with the language. He considered sex going all the way, but so he probably didn't go. He probably did a lot of stuff. I don't know, but all the salacious details in the Trump thing serve to buttress the overall story. The more details there are that back up one side's story, even if they don't pertain to the actual crime, the more likely that they're going to be, if it sounds likely and believable and not like some BS that she made up to blackmail him. Like she said that he came out in silk pajamas and she made fun of him for looking like Hefner, and he went back in his bedroom and came back with less ridiculous clothes. That seems believable. That seems like
things that seem
it doesn't matter to the whole theme of, or the whole realistic facts that what is he guilty of? What are we trying him for? Are we trying him for because he was stupid when he walked out in a pair of pajamas and looked ridiculous in front of Stormy, or are we trying?
But he's denying the whole thing. So
it doesn't matter. The thing is, did he misuse the funds? If he's denying he had sex with her, why did he give her the money?
Yeah, that's the question.
Why did he give her the money? So the money was spent. Was the money spent? Yep. Did he write a check to her? Was the check written to her?
Several.
And did she cash them and everything?
There you go. So that's the only thing that matters. I was a bookkeeper for years. Okay. You looked at the money out and money in. Who got the money and why? Okay. That's all you look at. He wrote
follow the money. Follow the money.
Yeah, we got to follow the money, Sasha.
We don't care why anymore. I don't care why. This is just a bunch of bored people who want to hear sex.
I just imagine in the deliberation, they take their first vote, 10 for guilty, 2 for not guilty, and then the 10 ask the 2. Well, and the 2 say, or at least one of them says, well, I don't think he did it. He says he didn't do it, and I believe him. And then that's when the 10 say, yeah, okay, silk pajama, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. It all adds up. And then what he's saying doesn't add up. I think if you pile on with the witnesses, and they're all pretty consistent, that makes it more convincing for the one Trumpy person on the jury, because it's Manhattan, that needs to be convinced.
But speaking of Trumpy folks and all along those lines, the other thing that's going on in this trial, and I wish that Nick was here, but he isn't. But I know Kim may have some thoughts, and you may have some thoughts as well, Rick and everything. But there are a number of contempt of court that Trump has already been cited with. I think it's gotten up to a ridiculous amount. I forgot exactly how many and everything. But there is this notion that they may actually put him in the jail cell if he keeps kind of going and they're trying to define the law. And as I was actually talking to a friend of mine who is a deputy here in Durham and all along those lines, and actually has an office at the Hayti Center, he was saying that no man should be above the law. And I agree with him on that and all along those lines. But what is your thoughts about this notion of him apparently trying to flaunt what the judge is, or flaunt against what the judge is telling him to do? Because the judge is basically telling him to zip it up. And every time he tells him to zip it up, he goes and runs his mouth some more and everything. So do they need to put him in jail?
So I was listening.
They would have put me in jail.
I was listening to somebody talk about it, and they said that the judge has options for locking him up. They can put him in jail for a few hours, or they can put him in a timeout box in the back of the courtroom. So,
no, but
they're playing into his hands. They're just playing into his hands.
But I want to tell you something. If it wouldn't be Stormy Daniels, let's say she wouldn't testify at this trial. So the question would remain, was there sex or not? Oh, you know what? Maybe there was no sex.
Doesn't matter.
So then you could think that perhaps these checks were written as a legal fees to cover Michael Cohen service. Okay. Now, this with her testimony, with all the details and everything, there is no doubts in anybody's mind that yes, there was sex. Now, when you tie it up to checks which were written to Michael Cohen to reimburse him, there is no any doubts in anybody's mind that yes, there were checks to Michael Cohen to reimburse him for payments to Stormy Daniels. So now all that comes together. Whether there was 3 seconds sex or 7 seconds or maybe even 11, that doesn't really matter.
No, I don't think it matters. And actually, all I would be concerned with if I were the prosecutor was, you wrote checks. You had no right to use this money for whatever you wrote it for. And that's all that matters. Whether he had sex or not doesn't matter. I know that they want to say, oh, well, he was protecting his character, but but let's get rid of that. Did he use the money to cover up his actions? Yes. Or did he?
Now, once we know what testimony of Stormy Daniels, yes, we know that. But if it wouldn't be for Stormy Daniels' testimony, then he'd say, well, look, I had to reimburse for legal fees. That's all what it is. He was a lawyer.
He could have even said, I was using her for a clothing consultant for my appearance, so I don't look like Hugh Hefner.
So there are still tens of millions of Americans who prefer to believe that he didn't have sex. That like Lance, that I argue with. Lance says, well, he's a very rich man, and women try to blackmail rich men. And there are still people who believe that Cosby didn't do what 80 women have accused him of doing. 26 women have accused Trump of either rape, sexual harassment, or sexual assault.
I believe him. And
so, when the number, I can believe maybe one woman, like there's a woman who accused Biden of putting his hand up her skirt, and then her story, like she kept changing her story, and then she defected to Russia and she lives in Moscow now. So, believe all women unless they defect to Moscow. But when it gets up to 26 women, I believe it, but a lot of Trumpers don't. And so you have to run this case. And yeah, he had sex. If you believe Stormy Daniels, which I do, they had sex once. But there's also Karen McDougal, and they had an affair that lasted for 9 or 10 months.
So that lasted a little bit longer than it was at one time.
Him trying to defend that he wasn't cheating on his wife just isn't there. Just because women threw themselves at him didn't mean he had to succumb to it. He could show himself to be a true leader. But I truly believe none of that matters. I think this is just a bunch of bored, and we've seen this time and again. We don't need to get down to the details of, how long it lasted. We don't need that. What we need is he wrote a check. Was the check used appropriately? That's all that matters. And he did not use it appropriately. It was misuse appropriated funds. Period. Jurors, you should not tell jurors to forget what they heard when they've already heard it. Because I already know judges can't do that, because I had to deal with a judge like that one time who, accidentally got evidence that he shouldn't have. Fortunately, it worked to my benefit. But, telling the judge to erase all that evidence from his brain was not going to happen. So
you should give the closing argument for the prosecution to forget about whether or not he had sex. What he did was the illegal thing, because it's not illegal to have sex.
It's not illegal to have sex. Nothing of that is illegal. And Clinton
speaking
that a long time ago.
Of things that aren't illegal,
I would go as far as to suggest that it's illegal not to have sex. If you're in your room in the hotel and there is a beautiful girl or so on, you are a moron if you're not having sex. That's for sure.
It might be illegal not to have it and everything.
It's illegal to show affection in public.
Yeah, there are places around the world where it's illegal.
Sex before you're married. It's totally illegal to have sex before you're married. So other countries have solved a lot of these problems by making laws that prohibit sexual intercourse before you are married, which that should prevent sex with someone else. But what if you're married and you have sex with someone else? Is that legal or not? I don't know. But Bali kind of put the clamp down on a lot of these issues. I thought that was pretty interesting when I travel around the world, and I learned about the different ways that people deal with this. In France, they just don't care. They can. The prince has affairs with whoever he wants. The king can do whatever he wants. The queen can do whatever she wants. Nobody cares. So, we shouldn't care about the sex. All I care about is what he did with the money. And I just think that that's where it needs to home in on.
Well, speaking of that and everything, Kim, there was, because you brought it up and everything, but there was a child marriage laws that was actually changed in Kentucky, because there are still some places where 16 is the legal age to have a marriage. And of course, there are a number of people. Okay. I didn't realize that there's like 300,000 or something like that, folks that have had marriages that were like between the ages of 10 and 16, which I find very repulsive and all along those lines. But there are some states where that is allowed and everything. But Kentucky just recently brought up a law to actually get it to 18 years, because Kentucky was one of the states that it was 16 years and all along those lines. So what is our thoughts?
So let me ask you this question. Are these the same states that make these girls have the babies and force them to have the babies and not have an abortion because of their age? So like if a child under the age of 16 gets pregnant, is she allowed to have an abortion? Or are these the same states that say, no, you can't have an abortion, but you also can't get married? I don't know. People, I think 16 and up, if you want to go get married and, ruin your life, go get married and ruin your life. I don't think it ruins your life because, I got married young. So, and I know people who did and stayed married a very long time, but I'm just saying that, 16 kids are going to, make some weird choices. but I'll leave that to other people.
Yeah, like you said, and I think that some of those states are just like you said. They're states that are definitely having some very tough rules against abortion and all along those lines. I think Kentucky is one of those states. So yeah, they probably aren't allowed to have a abortion in that particular state. I would need to check the facts and everything. And apparently Missouri, the show me state, has one of the most lenient laws in the nation, allowing 15-year-olds to wed. So they actually go down to as young as 15-year-olds. And there have been cases, like I said, where even children ages 14, 13, and even younger were allowed to get married.
Jerry Lee Lewis, the rock and roll musician, married his cousin when she was 13.
Wow, Jerry Lou Mason. And there was another thing. Rick, you brought up cultural world and everything. There is something I was watching on Twitter, and there are some people that are very upset, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, and then we'll bring up a thing about North Carolina politics as well that actually ties into some of the global community and all along those lines. But there are a pair of former campaign managers, speaking of Trump, that are getting together. Unfortunately, it's not airing on our network, at least not yet, because I haven't reached out to them and everything, but they are joining forces to do a podcast. They announced it on Monday, and that is, and I'm going to make sure I get the name pronounced right, David Palafi and Kellyanne Conway, who of course teamed up and did the Trump 2016 campaign, and David Palafi is the one that steered Obama's 2008.
I think only one of them.
A lot of people are upset because they're going like, David, what are you doing? Kellyanne
only Kellyanne Conway is Trumpy. The David guy is not Trumpy, and everybody on Twitter, is pissed that because I saw Kellyanne Conway was on Bill Maher last week, and she steamrolled him with her talking points. Like, he likes to be middle to liberal, but often he has conservative guests, and she just ran over him. He didn't get any words in, and she was just hitting him with Trump talking points again and again. I got really annoyed. And so I think people are afraid that, I feel a little bad about the show I do on Pod TV with Lance, because I'm platforming all these things Lance says that I don't believe in. So it's the same thing with this podcast. That this David guy is going to get steamrolled by Kellyanne Conway, and it's going to be 2/3 her just, why Trump, why Trump, why Trump, and yeah.
And that's what even David Palafi said the same thing. He said the two of us have fierce disagreements on issues and who we want to win this race, but we agree on what it takes to get to 270 electoral votes. We think it's important to have a place where audiences can get the full picture of where the race stands and how it could change, and we'll assess those.
They're not going to get the full picture because she is really good at aggressively, owning the time. And it'll end up being, if it changes anybody's minds, it'll change people more to Trump because she'll just hammer it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, and I don't think Trump is going to go to prison. I think that we'll end up with a hung jury to begin with. I'm also, because I think that, you had to select a jury by peers. I just think we're going to end up with a hung jury on this situation. And the trial is going to be his campaign. It already is. He's got sympathizers and supporters. Excuse me, but I don't think I want to vote for a president because I sympathize with him and I feel sorry for him because, he made a lot of mistakes and he's got one foot in the grave and the other in jail all the time. I'm just not going to sympathize with him. But there are people out there who will vote for him just to be obstinate, just to be.
Kim, but it's interesting you say that because the opposite side of that is I was reading because it was online, it was on Instagram, and then I went to their website. But the Progressive magazine, which is definitely a very liberal magazine, is arguing kind of the opposite because a lot of people are noting the age of the candidate and the fact that Biden is the older of the two and everything. And they were saying that the number that they were more concerned about, which is the number that Sasha has brought up, was the number of, I think it's 91 or 94, which is the amount of indictments that Trump is facing and everything. So that's what they're more concerned about.
Oh, way to go, Sasha. I like that.
So it's down to 88. They compacted. They made one case smaller and dropped 3 of the indictments. So he's down to 88.
So it's 88 instead of 91
indictments. I just, come on, people, use your brain. And, I'm going to bring something else up. We have extreme right wings and extreme left. I mean, just literally, and I'm sorry, but I don't know of any bird or any plane that can fly with one wing and not go in circles and spin out and crash. I think our country needs to get rid of a right wing and a left wing and have somebody who can fly both wings, and fly for the humans and humanity and the people of the country, and no longer be part of the political party favors that exist. I think, we just don't get it. We know this because we've been dealing with it. And also, have y'all been watching the ridiculous stuff about the White House? What was it, January 7th? I mean, come on, let's think about that. You got people sitting there going, "Oh, I was just wandering into the White House. I thought it was open." Come on, people. You were not just wandering. Stop lying. Just tell the truth. I mean, you're a Trump supporter. You were there to bash everybody's head in because they didn't vote for him. Just tell the truth. Why do you have to lie?
Well, I mean, that's what Jacoby talks about often, is the whole notion of honesty and being forthright in honesty. And one of the honesty things I've been seeing, and that's where I was kind of going to the part of the conversation, is there was a very damaging commercial toward Mark Robinson, who is running for lieutenant governor, because it basically points out all the ways that he has been a Holocaust denier, because apparently he's denied the Holocaust even took place and all along those lines. So apparently we've got a choice, and I know you're not a big fan of Josh Stein and everything, but apparently we've got the choice of two lesser evils as well, Kim. So I don't know your thoughts, because a lot of people are trying to paint Josh Stein in this very anti-Semitic kind of view and everything in that space. And I definitely saw the commercials the last couple of times, because it's been running on network television the last several days. But any thoughts around this notion of, is he actually an anti-Semitic candidate, or is this just some good targeting from the folks that are going against him?
I think almost all the Republicans in this state are whatever they want to be, and they stand behind whatever they want to stand. And one day it's this, and the other day it's that. And Josh and I, our issues go to the fact that he just out and out lied in court and never backed down from his lies, and wouldn't let his people back down from the lies. And it took a strong judge to put him in his place and his people in their place. And that's my issue with him, is that he's going to win even if he has to lie. And I just think that's wrong. It's just wrong. I don't think he's good for our state, but I also don't think the other candidate is better. That we have two evils we have to pick from. I don't like either of them.
So Mark Robinson began his career as somebody who says crazy crap on the internet for clicks. It would be like if I ran for office a couple of days ago, because Kristi Noem shot her dog. And I told a story about how you should never shoot your dog because my dog bit off my penis. And if I'd shot the dog at that time, but later my dog brought me somebody else's penis that was a better penis, and they sewed it on me, and now I'm fine. I tweeted that. And that's just because I wanted people to go, what the hell are you talking about, you freaking idiot? Because I was making a joke. That's how Mark Robinson started out, tweeting ridiculous crap that some people are lizards wearing human skin and the Holocaust. And he was just a troll, an internet troll that just got a following.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that but you know what? We get what we deserve. If that's the kind of person we're going to vote for, and that's the kind of person that we allowed to get on the campaign ticket, then we deserve. I really.
But I mean, you can say we deserve Trump, but only a quarter of Americans voted for Trump. Some people didn't vote. A bunch of people, the majority of candidates. Some people were too young to vote. Because a quarter of the population are idiots. The other 3/4 don't deserve it.
And then on top of that, the majority of the population did vote against him and not for him. So to say that we deserve him isn't really fitting. It's fitting a narrative. And then also the narrative that
he wasn't the people's choice.
Yeah, he wasn't the people's choice. He lost the popular vote.
Right. So we don't deserve him.
So in terms of the narrative that I think that we have to get out of is the lesser of the two evils narrative and start thinking about what each candidate is. And Mark Robinson is a horrible individual. And
well, they both
I'm
are.
sure-
They
no,
both
no,
are.
Kim,
They're
Kim,
both
wait, let
evil.
me explain. If one candidate is condemning Black people, saying that they're the reason that they have single father homes and all this stuff, just really coming down on one population and playing into the Klan narrative, that is not a both are
He's
thing.
evil. He's
No,
evil,
no,
but
no.
so is Josh.
Kim,
Josh is
tell me-
very.
here,
Do not
let's play
trust
this.
Josh.
Let's play this game. Tell me something that is equivalent to saying legitimate things that came from the Grand Wizard's mouth, that came out of Josh Stein's mouth.
Out and out lying in court.
Out and out lying in court, that's fine in comparison
out and
to
out lying and not.
did the out and out lying get Black people hung in trees?
It hurt me. It killed
Did
my
it get
husband.
a whole
It drove my
community?
husband to his grave.
Did it get a whole community? I apologize about everything, and this is not to sound.
And you know what? That's just as bad as destroying
again,
a whole race to me.
no,
is
it's
killing
not.
my husband.
I
Yes, it is.
apologize, and I don't want to sound insensitive.
But well, they're both bad.
You have a
To
no, they're
Toby,
not
they're
both
bad.
bad.
Why can't we pick
Kim.
somebody decent?
I
we pick
agree.
somebody
If we can find a better candidate, but we cannot play the same both our narrative, because we get into this both our narrative and then we forget about the other things. It's the same thing that's going on with Trump, because Trump is a horrible individual in every.
Yeah, Australia people tell me that. Oh my
But
God!
the thing is-
Everybody I met from Australia was like,
again,
"How
we're
can
playing-
you vote for him?"
We're playing that both our narrative. We have to actually get out of that both our narrative. You may have a personal gripe about him, and I get that.
It's
and
not
I understand
personal.
it.
He lies about everything. If he lied about
You
that with
legitimately-
me, he
you brought
lies about
him.
everything.
Kim, hold on. When
Lied. He fired
Kim,
up and lied
Kim,
in court.
Kim,
He sat there and
There's
said,
something-
you said you legitimately just
than
brought
lying.
personal
He's
brought up-
farting in
it
court.
wasn't just a personal
brought
issue.
up
He's
the
doing this to
specific-
me. He's doing this to everyone. If he did that
Is
to
he
me,
in court
will
every
do
day?
it to you.
Is he in court every day? No.
Except
Because
Wednesdays.
people are,
And
and they do exactly
not
what
Trump,
he
but
tells
we're
them.
talking
Monday,
about-
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
We're
4
not
days.
talking about Trump. We're talking about Stein. And
Oh.
Stein is
Oh,
not as bad as
Yes,
Mark
he is.
Robinson. You
They're
brought up
both
a
bad.
personal
They're
experience.
both evil.
Give me an example of what he lied about.
I'm not going to go there because that's going to be in my book.
That's your
And
personal
I
opinion.
want to
That
change
is the definition of a
But
personal
I
gripe.
don't want to be a spoiler.
That's
What
a
he
personal
lied
gripe.
about was he lied about, okay, they made up that I had income that I didn't have. They
Personal
sat
gripe.
there and just said, oh, we thought we saw, and they put it in there and then they pushed it. Then he came in and he goes, oh, those recordings don't exist anymore, but our words are and our transcripts are going to fly. I'm like, well, that's not what was said in those meetings. Here's my recordings. Well, we can't use your recordings. Well, where are yours? So I proved that they lied on the transcripts. All the transcripts they typed up, they completely lied about everything. They just made stuff up
Kim,
to tell
everything
you.
you said
That's
was a
just
personal
wrong.
gripe.
You know what? They're both bad.
No,
But don't
Kim,
sit there and
Kim,
say
stop.
he's bad
You're saying
and he's not as bad. They're both bad.
Kim,
They're
you're
both
giving me
evil.
personal gripes. You're giving me personal
Not
gripes.
personal, sweetie.
You said it's
He
in your
will
book.
do that
You
to
said it's lied
everyone.
what you did.
If he
You
was
said
doing
everything
that
is
to
surrounding
me,
you.
if he was doing that to me, he is doing that to everyone.
You don't know that.
I want to move back to national politics. While Trump was in court,
I
Joe
agree.
Biden was giving a speech denouncing anti-Semitism, and I listened to a chunk of it, and it was a good speech, and he sounded good. And I was just looking at him. He's 81, and the trouble with him is he's got an old face. He's got the hair on his head is like mine, transplanted from the back of his head to the front of his head, and his skin is very thin and papery. And I was looking at, and that's just unlucky. His brain is still fine. And if you look at people who don't have old face, who are the same age, We totally trust them. Tom Selleck is the voice of reverse mortgages, looks great, still has all his hair, same age. Harrison Ford, same age. John Voight, De Niro, Redford, all Christopher Walken, Mick Jagger, Stallone, Jeff Bridges. All these people are roughly the same. Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson, all old guys, but we trust them because they have better. Their skin is thicker and they have more hair.
Hey, Rick, speaking of that and everything, and speaking of people that we trust, what are our thoughts when there are trusted sports figures? Because there is a person that a lot of folks, including some feminists, really admired, but now they are out and apparently are saying that they are a supporter of Mr. Trump and everything. Because I was seeing on Twitter recently that the race car driver, Danica Patrick, is apparently saying that they might be backing Trump. And I'm wondering if that's going to swing some of the NASCAR voters and all along those lines, because the NASCAR community is a big community nationally and definitely has some kind of ability to swing certain areas and everything. So if Danica Patrick, and I did see on Twitter and other places that she was taking the kind of a picture at the same place where Trump was, which is one of these major races that's getting ready to come up, and was saying that she is going to support Mr. Trump in this race. So will this kind of swing the minds of some of those NASCAR type, and particularly NASCAR type women?
NASCAR people are going to vote for Trump anyway, so there's no.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like that's what I always ask. Like when when somebody comes out one way or the other, I always ask, whose mind is this going to change? At most, it's most likely to change the mind of somebody who wasn't going to vote, and like maybe just give them a little more of a nudge to vote for who they were going to vote for anyway.
Yeah.
That's not going to change anybody's mind.
And so what really you're going to have, it's going to be the election will go down to the independents in the swing states.
And I think the person who's most persuasive, Taylor Swift, might get some younger people to the polls who otherwise
young people generally don't vote very much anyway. It's going to be the older people, independent voters in the swing states are going to determine the election. I think it's going to be a game day decision. You're going to see this come all the way down to how well the economy is doing in October, because people have short memories. Whatever we're doing now, no one cares.
Yeah,
I
believe that will be the swing vote for the United States.
His trial will be history in October. So what's going to make the decision? How well is your pocketbook doing in October? Did the Federal Reserve cut interest rates before October? Is your job secure in October?
I agree.
And it's all going to be about the economy. Clinton is right.
Actually,
stupid.
Interestingly enough, there was supposedly a study that was done that it's really not the economy. It's starting to become these social issues, which is why the immigration thing is so important. And that's the thing that
number two.
Because the Republican Party, if you notice, they bash only inflation. However, they don't give you the context around inflation because the numbers on the economy are really good. So they cannot use the economy as your backing point. The big thing is they're using the Southern strategy and demonizing those that are in the immigration issue and the whole narrative of the white replacement fear. And that is what they've been pushing a lot with that. The immigrants are coming and stealing your jobs. That's what's going on. And this is why, if you notice, a lot of these, and then that's why that
only appeals to their base. In other words, the thing is, the base isn't going to make a decision. And by the way, California is not going to swing the election. California's already been ceded to, it's going left coast. New York isn't going to go election. That's all go the left coast.
In Florida, your state, one of your states is probably going Republican.
Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, but North Carolina is a swing state. So where we live, it can go either way. And Pennsylvania can go either way. And Florida can go either way.
Honestly, Wisconsin can go either way.
Well, honestly, Florida is becoming a swing state due to the fact of the abortion issue. Because if we look at the politics around abortion right now, that is a big win for the Democrat Party, and that has opened up a lot of the playing field for some of these states that were, diehard red or that were purple. So, for example, Florida right now, because of their ban, and even with what's the one that just did the World War?
Arizona.
Arizona is big time leaning Democrat due to the fact that they're dealing with that abortion issue.
Yeah,
and I think that's going to be a big
now
thing
and everything.
Out.
There's no doubt about that. I did have a question for Nick really quickly. There's another issue that he's brought up a couple of times along those lines. So I'm glad that you're here and everything. But because I know sometimes you are not the biggest fan of protests. I actually believe that protests can make a difference. But I sometimes wonder if people don't go too far, because apparently some UNC students got a message Monday that after a semester of work and a week to go before graduation, they will not be getting some final grades, because apparently a group of faculty members are going to withhold their scores until the university reinstates the 15 suspended students that were arrested along with 36 other non-students during last week's campus demonstration. So it seems like there's a group of faculty members that are basically doing what you call like a form of blackmail and all along those lines. So I was just wondering
it's called extortion. Okay, so the thing is, it's blackmail, extortion, but now it's by university professors. Boy, what a surprise. I guess their legal training is pretty low. But if I was a student, I would sue the professor. I mean, the thing is, because they have no right to withhold my grade because they have some grudge. Or some political
position. Was there a policy in the school that said that students that are protesting or doing stuff like this would be expelled or banned? I mean, were there policies written that they signed these contracts that said that they are gagged and banned from protesting and saying?
It always depends. It depends on what and where and how you're protesting. I mean,
no, it doesn't. I'm asking, is there a policy that the kids signed?
That's what I was going to say, Kim, is that there are a lot of students.
I'm asking a lawyer, is there a contract that they have made all of these students sign that says that they are banned and gagged from having any protest or any voice or anything like that?
Good question. You have to ask the student to see what contracts they sign.
It's at the discretion of the university.
I don't think any of these schools had that kind of contract.
Yeah, but a university professor has no right to withhold grades based on their political
views. They don't. I agree with that.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And you know what? You know what they should do? I mean, this is what I would do, but I don't go wrong. I would sue the university, sue the professor, and see if I can get their jobs taken away. And also damage
it. The university.
I'm looking for a job.
Associations with UNC, as well as all that. I think there are student conduct rules, but I don't know that many of the students actually read those rules, because there are student conduct rules as to where you can protest and what you can do and all of those lines. Because that's part of the conversation.
My question is, did they violate those policies?
I don't think.
The thing is, the university needs to fire all those professors.
Just to point out, I don't think you can actually have
UNC. All those professors who did it based on that, I would terminate every one of those professors.
You really couldn't have an anti-protest law or an anti-protest contract, because that goes against the Constitution. And if you're a public school, then you're unable to do that. So then you would be breaking the federal law against the Constitution, so you couldn't do that.
People, that is a violation of the Constitution, and I know because I've been reading about this.
So therefore, you couldn't have that actual rule, so they couldn't actually put that enforced on.
I gotta check this. This is really too good, Mark. Are you serious? The UNC. See, my ex-daughter-in-law is a full professor at UNC Chapel Hill. Okay, so I mean, I can go right to the horse's mouth on this one. Are you serious? The UNC professors are actually withholding grades?
Yes.
Did you fact check this one?
This came directly from the UNC newspaper.
Of what's going on in Israel and Gaza, you cannot be serious.
This is sad, because we're allowing conflicts around the world to destroy our own internal process here in our own country. We need to get back and unite and talk about these things. Anyway, these protests are driving me crazy. We need to sit down and just talk.
Exactly.
We need to communicate and share our stories and share our pain and then try to understand each other. I mean, this is how my husband and I got along. We didn't always get along, But we would sit down and say, okay, this is how I feel. I might not agree with that. And then he would say, this is how I feel. And, we might not agree, but somewhere in all of that talking, somewhere one day we would go, okay, I understand. We need to set, the universities need to stop and say, everyone, we know you have a conflict. Let's sit down and understand, why are we arguing? Why?
That is why I champion Northwestern and Brown at this moment, because they agreed, they talked, they came up, because the problem is that when we start demonizing and saying, well, we should,
you have no problem
that we should just kick them off campus, or we should do this, rather than, hey, let's talk and find out a common ground that we can actually come to an agreement. And that is what they did at Northwestern and Brown. So I'm happy they did that, regardless of me being, if I don't like what they did, so what? That is their students. That's their student body that they worked with, and the protesters that they worked with to come up with a solution for that school. If you don't like what they did, just don't go to that school. But that is what that's
my advocacy. I agree with you. But don't go to Northwestern. You and I are in agreement. Do not go send your kids.
That is your position. That is your position. I'm fine with people going to Northwestern. I don't care about that. My thing is, talk to your students, because every college is different. Duke is different from UNC. Their culture, their population, same thing. UCLA is different from MIT. Their culture, their population, their ideas, what they're actually angling for. So us to sit here and say, well, I don't like them because they worked out with their student body. That's not where you are. So let them work it out.
I think that this is totally destroying.
They have every right to basically yield to terrorists and be extorted.
They're not terrorists.
They're
not terrorists. And
I do want to ask one question though. How many people believe that Robert Kennedy's campaign ad was intentionally nixed by Facebook and Meta?
He's a trashy person. I don't care about.
I know he's trashy. I know he's trashy.
He has the right to
I'm just asking: did Meta and Facebook intentionally ban it, or was it an accident?
Here's the thing: they're a private entity, so if they axed it, who cares? They can do what they want. It's their private. It's their property.
The news says that they could withhold the grades. They haven't done so yet. If I was them, I would seek counsel immediately. First, they need to seek a psychiatrist to figure out why they're doing it. Then they need legal counsel to figure out why this is really a bad idea. But let's listen to Sasha. I know Sasha can't wait to fund future terrorists.
I have a question to you. You're talking about all universities are different from each other. One in LA is different from Northwestern, and so on and so on. And you're absolutely right. But one thing, what I cannot really figure out there, that all these different universities, all these different protesters, and not just United States, but all over the world, they are focused on one thing. They don't care about the Palestinian children or women or anybody else. No, they want their university to divest from Israeli companies. Now, I've explained already several times, and tomorrow will be modern financing. I will do it one more time. You don't understand, when you are selling your shares, somebody else is buying your shares, and the company doesn't care that its shares being sold and bought. Do you understand that?
Just to answer your question, the individuals do, regardless of the divesting of the companies. Yes, just like when you go negotiate for a car deal, you start at a particular level, the car dealer starts at another particular level.
Kind of negotiation?
So just what they did at Northwestern, they didn't get the companies to divest from their institutions, just like they did in Brown. They didn't get the companies to divest. It is actually a starting, a salvo to say, hey, look, this is where we're talking about. Let's have a discussion. Just like what Kim was saying.
Discussion about what? What kind of discussion you want to have?
Their issue right now, Their issue right now is yes.
There is no issue. Come on. Come on. There was an attack against the state of Israel on October 7th. And Israel has to punish the
would you like for me to answer, or would you like to just answer the question for me? Would you like to hear my answer, or did you just want to fill in the answer with your answer?
If you want me
to answer, then I'll answer. Okay, here's my answer. Here is my answer. Yes, everybody has already agreed that it is atrocious what happened on October 7th. Every single person.
Period.
Every single person, Sasha, has agreed to that. There were no protests coming off of that from these college campuses.
There was on second day.
There was no protest.
There were demonstrations in Europe. Almost in every country protesting from.
There was no protest on a college campus. Do you want my answer? Do you want my answer, or did you still want to fill in the blank for me? So here's my answer. So again, there was no protest coming off on any college campus right after October 7th. Everybody was on that same accord that, yes, what happened was atrocious. But what started happening, and that bubble up that came happening, was an anger to the response, because Israel had every right to respond and needed to respond. Everybody was okay with Hamas being brought to justice. Every single person was. But the problem came about is how that was done. When you start dropping dummy bombs, killing innocent people in the area, when you start seeing dead children, and now you're up to over 35,000 people, most of them kids. The majority of the country is less than voting. It is less.
Allow me to say this.
You're looking at women and children getting killed on a daily basis.
35,000 killed in Palestine.
So
28,000 are Hamas soldiers. There were only 7,000 civilians were dead in Palestine.
How do you know
the numbers? Why the students are protesting? Why adults are not?
Sasha, again, you're trying to fill in the blank for me. The number that you inherited.
I have a settlement offer, Jacoby. How about this one? Northwestern grants 5 scholarships, but you must be a Hamas terrorist to qualify.
That is dumb.
Oh, it is. Okay. Dumb. Excuse me. Do
you know why that's dumb? Is because now you're calling the Palestinian people and the people of Gaza terrorists.
I'm
legitimately just did that.
I think that there's a total misrepresentation.
You're just putting this up and calling the Palestinian people terrorists.
I'm saying
Nick, this is what you put up. You just called the Palestinian people terrorists. This, Nick, understand what I'm saying.
I guess not. Okay.
Understand your poor joke.
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Poor joke. You're calling the Palestinian people terrorists, and this is why they're actually protesting.
Jacoby.
That is what you're doing, Nick.
Yes or
Nick,
no?
You're calling the Palestinian people terrorists. Nick, you're calling the Palestinian people terrorists right now.
I'm not calling anything.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Let me help you. People are either terrorists or
you're calling them.
You're
calling innocent.
Duly noted, counselor.
We'll look at a few more minutes to go and everything. One of the questions I've got, because it's on part of the other questions that have been going on, is there are some people that are concerned even about the attack. I think that's kind of where Kimberly was going and everything, because actually there literally was a bombing in Africa that killed a lot of people, and there are some protesters that are concerned that while all this protest is going on about Palestine, and nobody's paying attention to what just happened in the Congo. And yes, there was a major incident that was happening in the Congo.
Yeah, why not all the people that are being killed in southern Sudan? We just ignore them. We don't care.
No, actually, there are
wonderful 20-year-old. Where are those wonderful 20-year-old college students?
Here's the question then.
Where is Northwestern University?
It sounds like your issue. You're fine with giving all these other individuals from different cultures scholarships and so on and so forth. You're fine with that. But when it comes to the Palestinian people, you're not.
They're not scholars. I don't give scholarships.
So the Palestinian people aren't smart enough. Is that what you're saying now?
No. The thing is, there's no evidence of scholarship.
So you're saying that because you believe that the Palestinian people aren't smart enough to get scholarships?
Not on that metric. Not on the metric you have to be Palestinian.
So just as I pointed out, you're okay with them not worrying about the metric if they are Jewish, if they are German, if they are.
Wouldn't do it on
you are okay with that, but your issue, because you're gripe,
I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist.
As you just pointed out, you brought up You keep bringing up the Palestinian issue and not talking about any other issue with any other culture.
Yeah. No, I just don't like the metric.
So you don't want any scholarships that are ethnically based, because as I pointed out, and I think that's where Jacoby is going, there are German scholarships, there are Jewish scholarships, there are scholarships for a number of folks.
No.
And then the irony,
I mean, all those scholarships do when it's German or Jewish or Palestinian. All it does is promote racism. Now, if you guys want to promote racism, sure.
But Nick, that's exactly what you just did.
No, I don't offer scholarships.
You put up on the screen. You legitimately just put up on the screen. Should we give Hamas terrorists?
I'm being
because as your reaction,
United States are offering chest scholars.
Listen to what I'm saying.
I don't know any
racism
whoever got
this is why you're blind to the racism that you just actually put out there, because of your response to the Palestinian people getting scholarships. You said, oh, hey, why don't we just give Hamas terrorists scholarships? That's being racist. That's pointing out and saying that these Palestinian people are Hamas terrorists. And then you went on a diatribe about how
you're making the leap that direction.
No, I'm not making the leap
that direction.
Here's a question for you then. Why did you not, when we brought up the German individuals, why didn't you ask, why did you not put up one? Why did you not put up one?
All I had to do is say, no, it's not okay with me.
Why did you not put up one about Nazis?
Instead, you keep rapping on.
No, Nick, why didn't you put up one about Nazis? You said German. Oh, you were upset, but you didn't say you didn't make a correlation between Nazis in Germany, and then the same Boko Haram in Africa. Why didn't you put up Boko Haram in Africa? There are all these terrorist organizations, but no, when we talk about the Palestinian people,
you know where they should get scholarships.
That is what
they should get scholarships to Trump.
That is what breeds racism.
That's how it's going to be.
There's a scholarship for you.
That's a good question and everything. I know we're getting ready to wind down.
We're going to need to wind down, but I got a good question for people to go out and do some research about, because, Sasha has said this, always follow the money, right? And I feel like that there is a lot of corruption going on and a lot of brainwashing, a lot of manipulating, a lot of gagging of people's voices. But who owns Meta? So I did a little bit of top research, and Vanguard owns majority of the shares, other than what's his name?
Zuckerberg.
Vanguard, which Blackstone owns a lot of Vanguard, and Vanguard owns a lot of Blackstone, and they own a lot of Vanguard, and back and forth. And is that even legal? But anyway, who owns a lot of Vanguard and Blackstone that it tends to seem to own each other over and over and over? Who owns them? Okay. Brazil. All right. Russia. India.
That's not true. I'm so sorry.
So let's take a look at
the major owners are American, a huge hedge funds, mutual funds, wealthy individuals. They own all this Vanguard.
Other countries. Oh,
they're tiny little bit minority. Brazil.
China owns a lot.
Check it out again.
Look at this, and you look at these other countries owning so much investment in the way we are allowed to communicate and the controlling interest and everything. Also, take a look at the other things and other money that we're giving China. Now, you have this United Nations, basically, of BRICS, and they have formed very tight. And I'm just going to predict real quick here that China is going to be the superpower in the very near future. They are going to take over. And then they're going to look at their buddies that helped them form this union. They're going to go, okay, you can either, be our servants and continue serving us, or die. And that's the way China's going to run the show. And I just think that they're going to be the next superpower.
Well, we've got a couple
hold on. I just did some quick research.
Yeah.
So the percent of Americans who are Palestinian is 1/20th of 1%. If they give 5 kids, if they had no Palestinian students before and they make 5 Palestinian students, that means that Palestinian students would be 0.06% of the student population, which is right in line with the percentage of the U.S. population. So, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
I just think we need to sit down and talk about the problem between Israel and Palestine.
I feel like we're doing that compared to, I always compare it to 1968 through 1970, when those protests were so crazy and the cops were busting so many heads that these protests are so relatively gentle compared to the
gentle, but we're not talking about the problem.
We're
not talking about what are your fears. Why do you fear this person? Why do you fear that person? Why are we banning these people? Why? And I
because it's easier,
a little more adult-like.
It's easier to create a boogeyman and make money off of fear. The problem is, again, this is why I said what I said about putting up the information. Oh, well, why not do? No, we don't need to talk about that or even demonize that. They came to an agreement. Let's accept their agreement, move on. Just as Rick pointed out, it's 0.06. Does it really matter that bad? Because there are other opportunities for other individuals, but not that many. It's the same thing why HBCUs were created, because there weren't that many opportunities for the Black community. There are not that many there are a ton of communities that are overlooked and overrun. And
there are none for Native American Indians. So, I'm a big supporter of just helping any minority voice. That's why we started Pod TV. We got to wrap up. Mark, I'll let you take the show. Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Enjoy the wrap up. I appreciate it and everything.
Cool.
Like I said, St. Cia will be coming our way in a few minutes, and all along those lines. I was going to just ask Sasha really quickly his thoughts, and if he wants to share them really quickly about, because the other thing I saw in the news is Mr. Putin, apparently, as you like to say, the meat grinder is trying to recruit people from Cuba to come, because apparently he's offering them $2,000 and Russian citizenship if they will come and fight for Russia. I personally don't think that many Cubans will be jumping on that offer, but that's just my personal philosophy. But I don't know your thoughts around that, because I did see that recently posted that was something he was offering, was for the Cubans to come there and fight for Russia, since they have similar philosophies.
Putin is very generous man. He pays $2,000 for 500 would do the same job. But he wants to pay $2,000. That's his business. Good luck to him. He will be prosecuted and killed at the end of the day anyway. So let him spend his money. I don't care.
I understand that and everything. And on that note, we're going to get ready to get on out of here. This was a very lively conversation, and we'll be back with more news coming your way at World Edition at 10 o'clock on tomorrow. And of course, we've got World Politics, the next one of these, coming on Thursday. So I definitely look forward to seeing y'all on tomorrow. I think we might be having some representatives from the smart cities coming, according to what Steve had told me, and all along those lines in one of these days coming up. But definitely enjoyed the conversation, but let's get on out of here.
Thank you.